the first of the causes of liberation and obstacles, the corresponding obstacle. And as regards this renunciation, nekkhamma, the meaning of this nekkhamma was also explained briefly, as it should be given in a suitable way. However, there are many things to be noted, to be remembered about the renderings of nekkhamma. So we are going to take only the rendering which suits our situation, that is, the practice of the way of mindfulness. So in this case, to suit this purpose, we take the meaning of vipassana kusala, the wholesome deed of the practice of insight. So this will be taken and explained both from the theoretical and practical standpoint. And future pairs of nirvana and niyana and niyanavarana, that is the causes of liberation and obstacles, will also be explained only in connection with vipassana samadhi, that is insight concentration. Vipassana samadhi, insight concentration, means khanika samadhi, momentary concentration. That is, the object of observation are none other than the ever arising psychophysical phenomena arising at the six sense doors, and continuously noting these objects, mind and body objects arising at the six sense doors, and concentrating the mind, applying the mindfulness and cultivating concentration as a result of the sustained mindfulness. This is vipassana khanika samadhi. So if one is not able to sustain one's mindfulness at the moment of the arising of these objects at the six sense doors, the mind will be distracted, there will be no concentration. And if the mind is not concentrated, one will not comprehend the realities of mind and body, that is discernment of mind and body. This is the mind, this is the body. Neither will one comprehend the cause-effect relationship and the universal characteristics of psychophysical phenomena, namely the nature of impermanence, unsatisfactoriness and impersonality. Because one is not aware of these characteristics, of these realities about the objects noted or similar objects not noted, one will become attached to these objects, one will cling to these objects, because one is not aware of the realities of these objects. If one is not mindful, one will not be aware of the realities. Unknowing, one clings. That is the fixed law of insight, niyama. Conversely, if one is mindful, one will be aware of the realities. One will know. When one knows, one will overcome these objects. One will be able to overcome attachment to these objects. So unknowing, one clings. Knowing, one overcomes. This is the fixed law of insight, niyama. As one sustains one's mindfulness on the ever-arising object of observation, one's mind will be concentrated, thus giving rise to khanika samadhi, momentary concentration. As momentary concentration strengthens, one is bound to see the realities of the mind and body. such as the discernment of mind and body, that this is the mind, this is the body, this is the mind, this is the matter. One will also comprehend the cause and effect relationship, and also the universal characteristics of impermanence and so on. Because one is aware of the realities, because one knows by noting these objects of observation, one will become free from the bondage of these of attachment to all these objects which are noted, and also similar objects which are not noted. Because this is the cause for liberation, vipassana kusala, the wholesome practice of insight, is called nekkhamma. So this niyana or nekkhamma or vipassana, a wholesome practice of insight, is the cause for liberation of the noble ones. And embarking on the progressive series of insight, one realizes the path and fruition of the noble ones, seeing Nibbana with attainment of the path knowledge, and are able to be free from the sufferings, or be liberated from the rounds of suffering. Because this is the cause of liberation from sufferings by the noble ones, this vipassana kusala, the wholesome practice of insight, is known as Ariya Niyana, that is the cause of liberation, by the noble ones, Ariyas. Ariya is given also as Parisuddha, they are synonymous, pure in all aspects, or from all aspects. And if one is not pure, one falls into the lower states of human contact. And if one is pure, one is sublime. If one is not pure, one is inferior. If one is pure, one is sublime and superior. Hence this expression Uttama. Therefore, this is the cause. The vipassana kusala is the cause of liberation by the pure and sublime individuals. Thus, this kamicchanda, desiring sense impressions, craving for sense objects, or pleasant sense objects, is an obstacle, or blocks the outlet of the noble ones of liberation, or it's an obstacle to the path of liberation, or to the obstacle to vipassana. It is known as niyana varana, that is obstacle to liberation. This kamacchanda, desiring sense impressions, craving for pleasant sense objects, wishing to get better and better ones, desiring all good things. And as much as one desires, one craves for these things, one will work for it, one will strive to get them ever and ever. So that's why it is known as niyana varana, obstacle to liberation. This is how obstacles arise. As a human being, one goes in pursuit of pleasurable things for oneself and others, being involved in the affairs of the wife, the husband, children, the daughter, the sons, the relatives, and so on. Many affairs concerning many people, general worldly affairs, So getting involved, or involvement in these affairs, is the obstacle to liberation. Everyone is involved in never-ending multitude of worldly affairs, mundane affairs. So as much as it is permitted by this kamacchanda desire for sense impressions, one works for one's welfare, and this also has been given in Emperor Ashok's monument, as everybody works for his her own welfare. One has got to plan to accomplish these worldly affairs by all means, and if one has not got them, one has got to look for them. One has got to go to in pursuit of these things. And if one has already got, one has to possess them, safeguard them, and keep them to oneself, and so on. There is no end to it, to such things. There is no free moments. One is never free. One does not have any free time because one is always occupied in these affairs, especially in places like scientifically developed countries, industrially developed countries. People do not have any free moments, free time, because they have to work to earn money. And once one young lady came here, and Sayadaw asked her, well, you are like living in a Deva land, paradise. But she said, no, we are like cattle or bullocks, because we have to strive, we have to work hard. Well, you work hard to get money, isn't it? Yes, we get money, but we're very tiring and very wearisome. And there's no free moments, free time for us. We are never free. That was her answer. So they don't even think, they cannot even think about practicing such a way of mindfulness, insight practice, in order to cultivate their mind and knowledge. And even if they have some thoughts about it, they cannot put it into practice. And they do not understand how to control their mind, leaving their mind uncontrolled, unrestrained, and just leaving the mind to run its own natural course, delighting, enjoying the free holidays or free weekends, at least by having good thoughts about good things, or move about here and there to the seaside, driving long distances to enjoy life. So they have no free time to think about such practice. They're enjoying life because they can get anything they want under the sun, because they can earn money, they are healthy, strong, they can move about, so they're enjoying this kind of life because they can get anything. So in this way, they have no free time to think about these such kind of practice, because they are enjoying life. And while they are enjoying life, either they become aware of this practice either through somebody's urging or exhortation, or by oneself coming to realize that one should practice. But they are worried that this kind of practice might disrupt their enjoyment. So they cannot undertake this kind of practice. Because they cannot practice, they are not aware of vipassana, and they cannot cultivate knowledge, and they will not even know what is vipassana, what kind of subject it is. They will not be aware of this. So it is said that's why it is said that vipassana, the insight practice, is the cause of liberation. And if one cannot undertake this vipassana, which is the cause of liberation, one will not be able to be liberated from the round of suffering, because this kamicchanda, sense desires, zeal for sense pleasure, sense objects, is said to have blocked or have become an obstacle to one's path of liberation. To this point, that the root cause of inability for liberation is the kamicchanda, the sense desires, zeal for sense objects. Therefore, this kamicchanda, zeal for sense objects, becomes a hindrance or obstruction or obstacle to the practice of this high-level discipline. Hence, it hinders one's liberation from the round of suffering. Mostly, when it comes to these two things, the liberation and enjoyment of one's life, people give more emphasis on the enjoyment of one's life. They will not give any emphasis on the method or means of liberation. And not only enjoyment in this very life, but also enjoyment in the life after, having this zealous desire to enjoy this life and the future life. Hence, because they are involved in such desires for pleasant objects, desires for sense objects, they cannot undertake the practice of vipassana. That's why it is an obstacle, or it hinders the arising of vipassana as the cause for the liberation, niyana. So long as one does not see the flaws or disadvantage of kama sukha, that is, sense pleasures, one will not see the real, because so long as they think that this is the real pleasure, they will find it very difficult to depart from this sense pleasures. And so long as they are not aware of the quality of Dhamma Sukha, the Dhamma pleasure, the pleasure which can be derived from one's practice, one will not be able to leave these sense pleasures, because one is not seeing the flaws, the disadvantages of kama sukha, sense pleasures. And so long as one does not see the flaws of kama sukha, and so long as one does not see the quality of Dhamma sukha, this one will find it very difficult to move away from this kamicchanda nivarana, the hindrance of sense desires. In the course of the practice of vipassana, while one is sustaining one's mindfulness, noting ever arising objects, there can arise intermittently these kamicchanda nivaranas, hindrances of sense desires, in the interspaces in between one's mindfulness, and in this way hinders the progress of insight. And this is how the kamicchanda nivaranas, the hindrance of sense desires, hinders the progress of insight. In the course of the practice, one may have the gross ideas about sense objects, because one has been conditioned to such things, or one is interested in such things. One may be thinking about one's loved ones at home, and also there can arise, this is how the gross ideas, gross thoughts. And in the case of subtle thoughts can also arise in connection with the practice, such as when one has very good practice, the practice is going well, one is feeling good, and one becomes attached to this good feeling in the practice. And when some objects are very obvious, some desirable objects, visions arise in one's mind, then one may become attached to such visions or good objects. And then one may be thinking over and over again, over and over, about these pleasurable objects which one have experienced. One may wish to talk about this to the near and dear ones, about one's good practice. One may wish also to give talks to other people about one's own practice, or one may be anticipating some good things to arise, or good practice, good mindfulness. And also one may be aspiring, anticipating concentration and knowledge in a remarkable manner. And even one may be aspiring, longing, yearning for Nibbana, which one has not realized as yet. And there are things that which arise in a subtle way in the course of the practice, the attachments in the course of the practice. For some yogis, their noting is going well, and when they have done very well, good practice, there may arise piti, rapturous feeling, chills and thrills in them, and all this rapturous feeling sweeping through the body, and they will say to themselves, it is so good, and I have never experienced this before. So one may become attached to such good feeling, rapturous feeling, and one will also aspire or yearn for good feeling. This is how the attachment, subtle attachment, arise in the course of the practice. At this point, I may say that the aspiring, yearning for Nibbana is not craving, is not tanha. It is kusala chanda, it is wholesome desire, wholesome zeal. One may say that. It is not unwholesome zeal, it is a wholesome zeal. But it is also has to be remembered that with tanha, craving, one cannot have lokuttara or supramundane states as object. And as for putujanas, ordinary beings, the kamichanda, the sense desires, with such desire, one cannot take Nibbana as its object, as for putujanas. And in the case of putujanas, there is such a thing, a consciousness as Gotrapu, that is change of lineage, which occurs just prior to the path consciousness, Sotapanna, Sotapatti Megha. So this only can see Nibbana as its object. As for other mundane consciousness, one cannot see Nibbana as objects with mundane consciousness. This is how it has been mentioned in the text. So all consciousness, all mundane consciousness, except Gotrapu, that is change of lineage, which occurs just before path consciousness, cannot see Nibbana as its object. This is for sure. These putujanas, their aspirations to realize and path and fruition knowledge of the Noble One and Nibbana, they cannot see the ultimate reality of Nibbana by putujanas. Only can they see with anumana, that is inferential knowledge, or by deduction. One can see the conceptual Nibbana, or akara paññatti, or santana paññatti, that is the form of the in the form or the manner or concepts. In this way, the kusala chanda, the wholesome deed of desire, can see this conceptual nibbana as its object. So also tanha, craving. With one's own craving, one can crave for conceptual nibbana, or see conceptual nibbana as its object. This is specifically mentioned in the text. Of course, at this point, it is not to elaborate, because it's only just to mention that this has specifically mentioned in the text, and not to elaborate on this point. When one is having a good practice, smooth practice, and if one does not crave or cling to things, then one's consciousness is only with vipassana consciousness or kusala consciousness. In other words, only insight consciousness, vipassana consciousness or wholesome consciousness arise continuously in oneself. When this craving or sense desire arises, kamicchanda arises, it amounts to, if when this arises, it will be as much as to say that let not vipassana arise as yet, as it is as much as one is hindering or obstructing the progress of insight. That is, if one is having sense desires, kamichandas. Things do not stop at this point. For some people, while their noting practice is good, and while they are able to cultivate concentration and knowledge in a remarkable manner, once this tanha arises, craving or arises, attachment arises, the practice tends to regress, dwindle, and not progress. And the result is that this lack of progress of vipassana can be followed by sadness. So this is how the kamicchanda or sense desires or craving or attachment hinders the progress of one's practice. To give an analogy, ordinary worldly analogy, there's such a game as a greasy pole. One goes up a greasy pole to get something which is at the top of the pole, some valuable thing, a prize, for instance. And the game is to climb this greasy pole and win this prize. And one goes up, climbs, and just when one is going to reach the prize, one is so elated with one's own success. Instead of grabbing this prize, one slips down. So also, in the course of the practice, even if the yogi is cultivating concentration and knowledge in a remarkable manner, once one has this craving or attachment or clinging, then the noting becomes discontinuous and one will fall down like one falling down from the greasy pole. And such a yogi is known as a greasy pole yogi, you may call it. Because it hinders this progress or liberation from the round of suffering, this kamicchanda is regarded as an obstacle to the cultivation of vipassana, which is the cause for the liberation of the noble ones from the round of suffering. When you say vipassana knowledge, not knowing vipassana means not just knowing vipassana from book knowledge or from hearsay, but not realizing vipassana from one's own practice, bhavana maya jnana, not realizing through one's own experience. This is what is meant by not realizing vipassana. Because kamicchanda arises, vipassana does not arise, or one does not comprehend vipassana. Not comprehending vipassana means not comprehending through one's own experience, one's own practice, bhavana maya jnana. So bhavana maya jnana, the meditative knowledge, contemplative knowledge will not arise because of this kamacchanda, zeal for sense desires. Therefore it is said to hinder or obstruct the liberation, the insight which is a liberation, which is a means of liberation of the noble ones from the rounds of sufferings. And this kamacchanda, sense desire, or zeal for sense objects, is known as niyanavarana, or obstruction, obstacles to liberation, or simply nivaranas, hindrances, or a hindrance of sense desire. Why is it mentioned just niyanavarana and nivarana? They are synonymous. Niyanavarana and nivarana, obstacle to liberation and hindrance to progress, are synonymous. So what is to be remembered is that this nekama here is taken as vipassana kusala, the wholesome practice of insight, which is the cause for the liberation of the noble ones from the round of suffering. And this is niyana. Vipassana kusala is niyana, cause of liberation. And whoever wishes to be liberated from the round of suffering is to depend on this vipassana, or practice the vipassana. Because this kamacchanda, which hinders the vipassana, which is the cause for liberation of the noble ones, it is known as niyanavarana, obstacle to liberation. So this kamacchanda is the one which should be avoided, abstained, and one should sustain one's mindfulness so as not to allow this kamacchanda to arise. This is avoiding, and overcoming by avoiding. And even if it has arisen in one's stream of consciousness, one should note and overcome. We have two things to deal with the situation: that's prevention and cure. Now prevention, out of these two things, prevention is more important and more profound than cure. So one has got to prevent things from arising, especially harmful things. And by preventing, one should win the victory. This is more beneficial. And while one is preventing, one is applying these preventive measures, if at all this undesirable element arises, one has got to cure it, so as not to overwhelm oneself by noting, sustaining one's mindfulness to strike with pinpoint precision. So this is how one cures it, or one deals with the situation with the practice of vipassana. One should be able to be free from the kamacchanda, which is the obstruction to liberation from sufferings. And with this objective in mind, one should be able to sustain one's mindfulness on the ever-arising object of observation in one's body with diligent mindfulness, with energetic aim, applying energy and aiming to be effective in one's mindfulness, and thus cultivating vipassana knowledge, insight knowledge, and be able to take preventive measures so as not to allow these kamachandas to arise. And may we all be able to strive towards that end and be on the path to liberation. That's all for this evening.